Good evening, everyone. My name is Jerry Ilar, the Public Events and Engagement Coordinator in the Communications and Engagement Office. Today, we are presenting one of our last sessions for Parent University Reopen Strong, high school grading, graduation and supports. And so since the beginning of August, on August 11th, we had a series of Parent University sessions to make sure that you are good to go for starting off the school year. I believe this is the second or third week of school. And so hopefully we can get you all the information and resources you need to feel prepared for your high school students for this fall. And so we do have a couple of sessions as we start up our fall sessions for Parent University. So in September, today we are doing the high school grading, graduation and supports. And then next week, Thursday, we are doing Conversation is the New Talk. And so one of our parents who have served on our Chancellor Advisory Board will be leading a conversation about sexual health and also how do you talk about sex with your students or with your kids, whether they're in elementary school, middle school, or high school. And so how to have those proper conversations or giving you tips and tricks on navigating that part of your relationship with your kids. For October, we will start a college and career strand. So we have FAFSA 101, or free application for federal student aid. And so if you need help with getting money to pay for college, this is the session you should attend on October 1st from 5:30 to 6:30. And then we have college admissions 101. And so our college and career team will lead you through a series of engagements or a conversation of what you need to do to make sure that you're ready for applying to colleges, whether it's for this upcoming year or in the future. And then for October 15th, we have supporting students to and through college. And so that's everything from the gamut from starting from 9th grade up until senior year, and then making sure your students feel successful once they start college or are in college. So to attend any of these, go ahead, log on to bit.ly/DCPS Parent U RSVP, and then additional Parent University sessions will be added from October until December. And then for today, if you need help with subtitles or interpretation, we do have Spanish and ASL interpretation, which should have been included in the chat function. So if you need Spanish interpretation, we do have one of our DCPS staff members and interpreters on that side. And then we also have ASL interpretations happening if you need that. But if you need captions added, there is a gear button at the bottom right of your screen. If you click on that gear button, there's captions and subtitles, and there should be about 5 languages that you can choose from, including English, Vietnamese, French, Spanish, and Chinese. And then we do want you to engage with us. I know you can't show your face, but you can ask any questions you have, whether they're anonymous or with your name tied to it. So in the Q&A function in the bottom right, go ahead, post a question that you may have throughout the presentation. We'll have about 3 times throughout this presentation for you to answer any questions you may have about supporting your high school students. And then if you do want, we do have a couple of people behind the scenes answering as many questions as possible, but we do know that we do get a ton of questions and we're trying to answer as many as possible. So we may not get to your question. So if there is something that you do want an answer to, or if it's something that's very nuanced or something that you have for your student specifically, go ahead, say, I would like some information of who I can connect with, or just saying like, I would like a direct, a personal answer to this. So that way we can make sure that you have all the resources for you. And then as we go into this conversation or this Parent University session, we have 3 community agreement points. So assume best intentions. This has been hard. We all know this has been hard, and hoping that we can give each other grace while we get through this time. And as we know, like, things may change for November 6th. Go harder on ideas and not on people. At the end of the day, we all have lives that we live, and we are not sure where we're all coming from or what resources or things that are preventing us from feeling successful, or things that maybe prevent us from having a good day. And so just making sure we go hard on ideas and not on people. And then to also accept non-closure as we go through we may not have all the answers, but we'll try to answer as many questions as possible. So with that, I want to introduce our presenter for today, Liz Wiemers-Smith, Director of Student Engagement, Office of Secondary Schools, and I will turn it over to her to lead this conversation on high school graduation supports.
Great, thank you, Jerry, and thank you everyone for joining. We're really excited to share a little bit about graduation and grading and some of the supports we have in DCPS. Like Jerry said, my name is Liz Wiemers-Smith. I'm the Director of Student Engagement, which falls under the Graduation Excellence Division in the Office of Secondary Schools. So the Graduation Excellence Division is committed to creating high expectations around graduation requirements, making sure our curriculum and courses are challenging so we can prepare our students for life after high school, and making sure that we provide students with the supports they need to reach their academic goals and graduate ready for success. So today we're going to talk about the graduation requirements for school year 2021, grading from school year 1920, as well as what it looks like for this year. And then also talk about some student supports that are available in our schools. And then we'll just do a quick closeout. Okay, so first it'd be helpful to review a broad outline of graduation requirements that students need to complete to earn a standard DCPS diploma. So students need to earn a total of 24 credits, and the chart on the slide details how many credits students need to earn in each subject area. Please note the 24 credits are requirements for the standard DCPS diploma. Application schools may have additional or different requirements for their diplomas. In addition to the 24 academic credits, students also need to complete at least 100 hours of volunteer community service, which we'll talk a little bit more about in an upcoming slide. I also want to note that at least 2 of the credits need to be in a college level or career preparatory course, such as tenacity, an AP or IB course, internships, etc. Again, this is for the standard DCPS diploma. Application school requirements may vary a little bit. And then I just want to back up a little bit. I know I've mentioned credits several times, so just want to be clear on what I mean when I talk about that. So most courses are worth either 1 credit or 0.5 credits. Students need to successfully complete a class with a passing grade in order to earn a credit. So passing grades include A, B, C, D, or P. If a student earns a non-passing grade for a class, so an M, audit, I, F, or L, they will not earn credit in that class. Because students need 24 credits to graduate, the expectation is also that they will earn about 6 credits every year to stay on track for graduation. However, we know that is not always the case for a variety of reasons. So in DCPS, we have a number of options for students to recover credits, which we'll talk about at length later in this presentation. And the last piece about graduation requirements that I'm going to talk a little bit more about is community service. So in order to qualify for graduation, students must complete at least 100 hours of community service. The requirement was waived for the class of 2020, but as of right now is still in place for the class of 2021. That is in discussion in the city right now, so it may change, but as of right now, that requirement is still in place. So students can start earning community service in 8th grade all the way up through 12th grade. Right now, we are encouraging all of our students to participate in virtual community service opportunities. The link is in there, but also you can just go to bit.ly/DCPS_VCSH, which will give you a lot of information on some of the opportunities that we have found. Students are also able to receive community hours for services that are conducted in person, if they can find a spot that is still allowing that, but we want to make really clear that they should follow all district safety procedures if they decide to do in-person service. I'd also recommend that all students get pre-approved, work with their counselor to pre-approve their community service prior to beginning any community service opportunities in order to make sure that it meets all the requirements that's set in place by the district. So I'm going to pause there. Jerry, if there are any questions that have come up, or if anyone has any questions they want to pop into the chat, now would be a great time.
Yeah, so we do have a couple of questions that I'll turn over to Sarah Navarro. And I think that the first question is just, I think people are still having questions about community service, and I know you just went over the slide, but can you talk about what some ideas or what some of the counselors have talked about for virtual community service hours? What does that look like? What are they suggesting for some of the students? And I know there is a web link, but can you speak a little bit more on that piece?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. It's so great to be with you here this evening. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy days to tune in. Hopefully we have some families and some students even from high school. So there are a number of different community service options that can be done virtually that can range anything from reading aloud books to letter writing campaigns. The link that you have in the chat gives kind of a broad variety, but that is certainly not the ceiling. There are many other opportunities that aren't listed on this page. So we're really encouraging students to get excited about a cause and to find community service options. If nothing jumps off the page in the options that we've kind of curated for folks, please work with your school counselor, finding opportunities, elevating them. We generally are able to approve them as long as they are truly serving the community in some capacity. And then oftentimes we even bring those in and publish them so the broader DCPS community can participate in those as well. So the big thing would just be getting that pre-approval, making sure that the organization can award those hours so the student is able to get credit for that opportunity.
Going along with community service hours, it sounds like we do have a question about if students can work as poll workers for the election. We do have a huge election coming up in November. What are the guidelines for that if students are able to do that, since I know that is during school hours as well?
Yes, absolutely. Students can take advantage of that opportunity, and we do encourage them to do so. They would want to coordinate with their teachers to make sure that they can get the work required from the course and just let them know that they may not be able to be in virtual attendance at that moment. Whether it's serving at the election or serving in another in-person capacity, I just want to underscore that safety is definitely our top priority. So we want to make sure that students are taking every precaution in terms of social distancing and wearing masks. But we're all excited that it's an election year, and we definitely want to provide opportunities for civic engagement in this meaningful way, especially as we live in the capital of our nation.
Perfect. And then I'm going to transition a little bit because I think there might be some parents who are new to the high school realm. And so just can you give like a couple of updates or things that parents should look out in terms of transitioning their students from 8th grade into 9th grade or just into the high school world?
Yeah, that's it is a really exciting time, and it can be a challenging time. So at most of our comprehensive high schools, we do offer 9th grade academies, which is a great way to transition students. They're we think about it almost as a school within a school, and we have additional layered supports within our 9th grade just to kind of follow up more consistently with students and make sure that they're getting the hang of being a 9th grader. We also, we always want to make sure that students are placed appropriately into courses. We know some students have the opportunity to take some high school courses before they even enter high school. And if those high school courses were taken at a middle school that offers high school credit, then we want to make sure that the school counselor is provided with that transcript so that student can have those courses count towards their diploma, and then their counselor can schedule them appropriately kind of in the next course in that sequence. But definitely, school counselors are going to be a big asset. Teachers are going to be an asset. We want our 9th graders to be really successful, and we know that this year, more than any, is a little bit challenging because not only is it a new building, you're not in the building quite yet. So there are definitely lots of resources spanning from school counselors to pathways coordinators, who we're going to talk about a little bit later in the presentation. But we are definitely prioritizing that 9th grade transition. And if you have specific questions, please let me know and we'll get you to the right folks.
Jerry, you're muted.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Just a reminder to use the Q&A function for any questions you may have. If you have any issues with connecting, or if you can't see the screen right now, go ahead, try logging in and out with Teams. We know it can be a little bit finicky. And then if you have any just general questions, to use parentu at k12.dc.gov. But we're going to go ahead and move on with the presentation, and I'm going to turn it over to Liz to begin.
Great, thanks, Jerry. So we're moving to talking about grading for 1920 as well as grading for the school year of 2021. So first, I just want to do a quick review of where we landed for school year 1920. So after COVID hit and we physically closed our buildings last year, we made some adjustments to the grading scale to account for the impact of the pandemic and for distance learning. The policies were created based on stakeholder feedback and are grounding in the belief that grades are in service of ongoing learning and should provide qualitative feedback and help students plan for personalized instructions while making a record of their growth and development over their school career. Where we landed is that students who earned A's or B's for the year will have those grades published as A's and B's on their transcript. Those grades will be calculated into their grade point average. A student who earned a C or a D will have a P published on their transcript. So a P means pass. They will earn a credit for that class. It is a GPA neutral, so it will not be calculated into their grade point average. A student who earned an F as a final grade would actually have an I for incomplete published on their transcript. We decided not to assign Fs as final grades for school year 1920. Students who have an I on their transcript have until the end of term 2 this year, which is January 29th, to repair that I and complete work to earn a passing grade. So schools will be rolling out some recovery options in the next couple of weeks for those students. So students who have a C or D and want to see that it's now currently published as a P, if they want to publish that as a letter grade and have the C or D on their transcript, they can do that, as well as if a student has an A or B and wants that to be published as a P, they can request that modification. And if they are interested in doing that, please reach out to your counselor. We also understand that colleges might have some questions about the Ps. DCPS is having conversations with post-secondary partners about that issue right now. So if your student is applying to colleges and has questions, they can reach out to the Director of College Prep Programs, Karime Naime. We can pop her email into the chat. Additionally, as Jerry mentioned, the College Prep team will be hosting a variety of workshops around the college admissions process in October. So you can also attend those for more information. All right, and so for school year 2021, where we landed with the grading policy is that we decided to keep the same grading scale, A, B, P, or I, which will be in place throughout the year. So again, students who earn an I will have until the end of summer school 2021 to earn a passing grade in the course. We also changed the way that grades are weighted to adjust for differences in distance learning. So final grades will be based on average term grades for the year. So that was a lot of technical, kind of thick information there. So I'm going to pause again for a second. I think we've had a couple questions come in. So I'll stop and turn it over to Jerry and Sarah to answer some of those questions.
Thank you, Liz. I'm going to pull Sarah Navarro into this, but I think there are a couple of questions just on community service again, and so I do want to circle back to that. And then also thinking about dual enrollment. But for Sarah, just a quick, where should students be logging in their community service hours again? And what is the process for that?
Absolutely. So students should be working with their school counselors. So there is a community service form, and we can actually go ahead and pop that in the chat momentarily. But basically they would be using the community service form to log their hours. They would submit that community service form to their school counselor, and their school counselor would log those hours in Aspen. So once those hours get logged, then then the student or family would be able to look and see how many hours are logged and just make sure that everything has gone through appropriately.
Perfect. And it sounds like there was a question about a syllabi and where are those being all held on, whether it's Canvas or Aspen, for some of our newer parents to high school students.
Absolutely. Great question. So with the high school courses, you can sort of think of Canvas is really you're going to be the go-to place where you get all the information on the syllabus for the course, really down to the specific required tasks that are outlined for each Canvas course. So for all of our high school courses, you should be able to log in to Canvas, and the students should have access to that platform that allows them to see what the course expectations look like, and that's where they'll be submitting work, etc. Now, the official gradebook for students is actually housed in Aspen. So And at this point, those platforms are separate. We're looking at a roadmap on figuring out a way to link those platforms in the future to kind of synchronize the gradebook. But for right now, I just want to emphasize that so Canvas is kind of where students would understand what assignments are expected, they would do their work, they would submit those assignments, they would receive feedback from their teacher. But then when it comes down to the formal grading, that formal grading is actually happening within Aspen. So families would be logging into Aspen and checking the grades in the student gradebook. And that's where all the calculations that Liz spoke about earlier in terms of each of the categories, whether it's participations, practice and application, or assessment, parents and families are able to see exactly what's been posted in the Aspen gradebook, and that's where the formal reports are, and that's what the report card and the transcript are generated from.
Awesome. And then one last question, and this is about ESL or ELL supports for students. Can you give, high school is a crazy time for everyone, whether they're the students or the families, but what supports do we have for ESL families and students with navigating the high school realm?
Yeah, so each school has kind of a robust set of ESL supports. It's going to be a little bit different school by school, kind of depending on whether there's like an international academy at that school, or there are more itinerant teachers and counselors dedicated to both being bilingual and providing those additional supports. So you can expect that your student will receive testing to help us understand kind of where they are in terms of language level, so we can create a schedule for them that's going to be appropriate and challenging, but also supportive. And always at the school level, and I've probably said this a couple times already, but I'll say it again, the school counselor is always really a great resource to get additional information. And so if you have questions, whether it's about language learning or any of other more specific supports, the school counselor can always kind of point you in the right direction in what's available specifically at that school and through our community partners.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. I'm going to turn it back to Liz to carry on the presentation.
Great, thank you, Sarah and Jerry. The last thing I want to talk about is student supports. Talk about some of the student supports that the Graduation Excellence Team supports across the district to help students as they work towards graduation. So we'll talk about some academic recovery options as well as some more social emotional support options. All right, so currently we offer 2 different avenues for students to recover credits, credit recovery and twilight programming. This allows students to earn credits, to earn extra credits if they find themselves behind on credits for any reason. So as I mentioned earlier, the hope is that students earn at least 6 credits a year. So if for whatever reason they don't, or they find themselves behind or missing credits at any point, we offer a couple academic recovery options. Both options are offered outside of school hours and are taken in addition to a student's full course load during the school day, which helps them stay on track in their current classes while also earning credits they may have failed or missed along the way. Both programs are aligned to DCPS curriculum and conform to all of the rigorous DCPS academic standards to ensure that students not only earn the credits, but that they are prepared for continued academic success after DCPS. Because the first one of those options is credit recovery. Credit recovery allows students to relearn content and earn credit in a course that they previously attempted and failed. So a student must have an F or an I on the transcript in the original credit class in order to take credit recovery. Credit recovery courses are self-paced and they're focused on content mastery. So students can speed through portions of the course that maybe they're more comfortable with, and they can spend more time on areas that needed additional support. They're also able to earn credit. Students are able to earn credit when they successfully complete the required coursework. So if they're able to speed through some of the content more quickly and demonstrate proficiency, they can move through the course in a couple of months. Credit recovery classes are usually very small, so it allows for individualized instruction and a lot of targeted one-on-one support from teachers. So for 2021, credit recovery classes will be completely virtual throughout the school year, even if we do return to in-person learning at some point. All credit recovery classes are going to be 80 minutes, 4 days a week, offered, like I said, either before or after school. Students, the exact schedule and the set course offerings may vary by school. It's going to depend a lot on student need and teacher availability, but again, students can cross-enroll in other schools as needed. Students also have the option to enroll in credit recovery throughout the year as an enrolling admission process. All of our graduation required courses are available to take through credit recovery. The other option we offer for students to academic early recover is a Twilight. Twilight allows students to take original credits that they need to earn to graduate. This would be for courses that students missed or never took along their journey towards graduation. I do want to emphasize that it is a recovery option. It cannot be used to accelerate student learning. This is only for students who are missing credits. So Twilight operates as an extended school day. So courses are offered outside of the regular school hours, but still conform to all the expectations that are in place for the school day, including attendance, grading, curriculum, etc. Twilight classes are generally very small, and which allows, again, for a lot of targeted, individualized instruction. So Twilight will be virtual at least through the end of term 2. We'll kind of reevaluate depending on where the district lands for in-person learning for terms 3 and 4. Like credit recovery, Twilight will be offered 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday in 80-minute blocks, before and after school. So Twilight, unlike credit recovery, is not self-paced. It aligns with the start and end of term dates, and last, like I said, just think of it as an extended school day. So it follows the entire curriculum as a regular school class. Twilight is offered officially at the schools listed on the slide. Course offerings vary by school, again, depending on student need, teacher availability, and varies by term. So schools will sometimes offer different options in term 2 and term 3. And again, students can cross-enroll in other schools as needed. Okay, so in addition to those academic recovery options, the Graduation Excellence Division also supports several social emotional programs to help students on their path towards graduation. It includes pathways coordinators, school counselors, and New Heights programming. And there are a lot of other supports available to students across the district, but these are just the ones that are offered within our divisions. Those are the ones I'm going to focus on moving forward. So pathways coordinators are school-based staff who help provide intensive case management support to students who are at risk or who are not on track towards graduation. They help make sure students have the resources they need and all the supports they need to graduate. They also support and run a lot of the academic recovery options at the school level. Pathways coordinators are in place at all of our comprehensive high schools, as well as Columbia Heights Education Campus, Ron Brown, Luke Seymour, and Ballou State Opportunity Academies. We also support New Heights coordinators who are school-based support staff who work specifically with expectant and parenting students to advocate for their needs, help them stay on track, and connect them with relevant resources and life skills training so we can help them not only to graduate, but to succeed in life, both as a student and a parent. New Heights support is available at all of our DCPS high schools, as well as our middle schools with expectant and parenting students. And then finally, as Sarah mentioned, school counselors are really just a great resource all around for connecting students with the supports they need to succeed, both in graduation and beyond. So every high school has multiple school counselors in place. They can help students develop academic strategies, small groups, sessions to help them do individual check-ins and help students manage their emotions, apply interpersonal skills, and also plan for post-secondary options, excuse me. So again, like Sarah said, they're really kind of the gatekeepers in a lot of ways to a lot of the information that we've covered in this presentation so far. Okay, so we covered a lot of ground in the last few slides. So I'm going to pause once again and have Jerry and Sarah join for any of the questions that have come through the feed.
Jerry, you're on mute.
Again, Sorry about that, y'all. So I'm going to try to slow this down again for our ASL interpreters and our Spanish interpreters.
Right.
So just a reminder that if you do need ASL interpretation or Spanish interpretation, we do have those links for you. And then a couple of DCPS staff helping on that side. But for Sarah, once I turn it over to you, one question is just kind of the scheduling for high school students. Thinking about Wednesday, what does that look like for students? What should parents be suggesting for their students and making sure that they're really utilizing that day fully? Because we want to make sure that's not a day off, but it's actually a day for curriculum and learning.
Absolutely. That is a great question. I love that question. So yeah, Wednesday's a really critical day. The way that we designed the Wednesday is that it's a day in the middle of the week to help students really get caught up, do the work that's being assigned. We know there's a lot of work to do. We know that students and families are balancing a zillion things right now. And we know that on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, our students do spend a lot of time live on screen, engaging in their courses. So Wednesday is really that day that students should be completing assignments. They should be following up with their teachers. Depending on the school, there are different small groups that are held on Wednesdays. So you should definitely reach out to your school counselor or students' teachers if you feel like there's some additional support that your students should need, or since we're talking about high school students themselves, can advocate for themselves in this realm. But I do want to also underscore that attendance counts, and attendance counts on Wednesdays. So, and hopefully some of you were able to join the attendance presentation earlier this week or have seen the attendance guidance, but the way that attendance is being captured this school year for now in our virtual stance is that when a student logs into Canvas for the day, that will capture them as a present for the day. So that's definitely, at kind of the beginning of the day, we would want a student to kind of log into Canvas, which works really well because that's where all of their coursework is going to be housed. So Wednesdays definitely matter. They're a day to get caught up. They're a day to do some social emotional recharging and learning, and definitely, use them to the maximum.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm going to take it back for credit recovery since there were a couple questions on that. When does credit recovery begin, and how does a student find out what credits they are lacking?
Excellent questions. So we are looking to have credit recovery begin at many of our schools on September 28th. Some schools would need a little bit more time just to kind of get their offerings all set and their teachers all trained up. It is a specialized training because, as Liz mentioned before, credit recovery is a slightly different opportunity in that it's competency-based and it's a little more self-paced. So we do select and train our ninja teachers to be great credit recovery teachers. But credit recovery should be starting toward the end of September, if not the very beginning of October. And students can access their transcript in Aspen to let them know any courses that they have either received Fs on or Is on. And those would be courses that they are eligible for credit recovery on. Any students who are in their fourth year should be having, within the next few weeks, should be having what we call LOU, and that stands for Letter of Understanding, conversations with their school counselors. And basically, that's just a fancy way of saying we want to make sure that school counselors have a conversation with each student about what credits they've earned, what credits they need, and how we're going to schedule them successfully to get everything they need and be on track for graduation. So our fourth year students will be having those now this fall, and all of our students will have them by the early spring.
And then next question, how are tests and quizzes being administered, if at all, for students?
Yeah, so assessment is still going to be part of our expectations for this school year. Obviously, our testing environments look like, 52,000 different environments because everyone's sort of, whether you're in your bedroom, on your living room sofa, it's going to be a little atypical. So teachers will provide guidance on what their expectations are for how students should be interacting in the test environment. And that'll include things like making sure that there's no help from anyone outside. Obviously, it's ideal if they can find a quiet environment. Some of the tests will be time bound, And so students will receive guidance and information. There's going to be a lot that goes on the honor system in terms of making sure that kind of students take that accountability to conduct any tests in the environment that the teacher has asked for those tests.
Awesome. And then thinking about letter grading and percentage equivalence, there were a couple questions just if you have any resources on calculating GPAs, how do like non-AB letter grades be calculated into GPAs, and just also have percentage equivalence change the letter grades system or no?
Yeah, another series of great questions. So I'll start with how do sort of A through F scale grades count in the GPA, because that's a pretty straightforward answer. So the answer is that they don't. So basically, they are neither in the numerator nor the denominator of a GPA. So if a student receives a P, that P will grant that student credit for the course, but it will not calculate into the GPA in any way. The GPA will remain unchanged by that P or passing mark. In terms of the percentages associated with, what equals an A, what equals a B, that has remained unchanged, and that's something that I think we could put in the chat shortly, just to let parents know what that scale looks like and students know what that scale looks like. But that is consistent in terms of how those letter grades are awarded. I feel like there might have been another piece to that question, Jerry. Did I get it all, or was there another portion?
Yeah, that was the first part, and then the last part was thinking about percentage equivalence. Has that changed in terms of the letter grades? What's being assigned for an A for like a 93 to 100 and 90 to 92 for an A minus? Has that changed at all for the grading system?
So yeah, that has not changed, and I think we can pop in the chat what those exact. And it looks like we already have. So that 93 to 100. What you see kind of posted in the chat is consistent. The only difference that we've already talked about is that the default for how those C's and D's will publish is they will publish as a P unless the student and family requests for the letter grade, the underlying letter grade to be published, and the GPA value to count.
Awesome. And then thinking about that, I'm a very visual person, and just say I need someone to talk to at a school about just GPAs and navigating that, whether I'm a student or a parent. Who would be the best person to talk to at the school? Is it the pathways coordinator? Is it the school counselor? Is it a teacher? Who should I connect with at my school to make sure I'm getting all of that information?
Yeah, so school counselor is always going to be kind of your best bet, go-to, certainly for things like calculating GPAs, looking at transcripts. They're definitely going to be the strongest resource in the school. The other thing that's great about school counselors is they both build those student relationships and have a lot of knowledge of their own, but they also are really tapped into all the other professionals in the building and where their expertise lie. So for example, in schools that have college and career coordinators or pathways coordinators, our school counselors work very closely with those folks and can, if there are questions that would be more appropriate for one of those other folks, the school counselors will work with the student to do a warm handoff to someone else in the building to support them with that.
Awesome. And I think we may still get some Q&As coming in, but I think one question going back to community service, if my student doesn't complete their 100 community service hours, what happens? Do they not get their diploma? What will happen to my student for graduation?
Yeah, so for this year, that will depend. So as Liz mentioned, the community service hours were waived for our 2020 graduates due to the pandemic and just the more limited availability of community service options. It's a possibility that will happen again, and that will be true for the class of 2021, but that's not confirmed yet. So we are operating under the assumption that community service is a requirement for graduation. And so if it's not waived, that basically means just like you need those 4 English credits and the math and everything you saw on that chart, you do need those 100 hours of community service as a minimum. We do have students that do complete all their coursework, but are unable to be verified for graduation. until they complete community service. And in that circumstance, usually what we do is they have an opportunity over the summer, and they'll work to complete those 100 hours so they can then become verified as a graduate. The other thing I'll mention, if community service hours are waived for our 2021 graduates, that's not a reason to stop doing community service. And there's a couple reasons behind that. So number one is for students who aren't graduating in school year, this school year as 2021 graduates, they will still likely be accountable for the full 100 hours of community service when it is time for them to graduate. So we want to make sure that they're tracking towards that goal. And also, community service is just a great thing. It's a great way to stay engaged. I know that we're all able to interact a little bit less, and we've heard such great things. We had students participate, at the beginning of the pandemic. One of the community service projects that we had students participate in was to make comics and graphic novels educating children on how to take care of themselves during the pandemic, and it had so many amazing ways. So it's a great way to give back at a time that's been difficult for all of us.
I have two more questions, and hopefully this one doesn't throw you off, but it's thinking about commemorating or congratulating our seniors who are graduating from last year and also going to next year. How can parents get engaged with their schools and making sure that the class of 2021 feels recognized? Do you have any recommendations on that as we send them off into college for next year, knowing that COVID will most likely still be impacting? What does that look like for next year? What are some ways for parents or community members to feel engaged in that process for next year?
Yeah, that's a great question, and one that we've actually been thinking a lot about. Hopefully you had the chance to catch some virtual ceremonies. We held virtual ceremonies. Every school had one, and we had a wonderful rainbow virtual ceremony. And we don't know what the future will hold in terms of how we'll be celebrating the class of 2021, but this has kind of prompted us to think about putting together a committee on that will be made up of folks from central office as well as some folks from schools. And we're looking to recruit some students to be on that committee as well, so we can get everyone's voice heard on how to sort of best represent all of the accomplishments of students. And one of the things that I'm just thinking that we could do as part of this committee is make sure that we have some school-based mechanisms to formally collect feedback. I know that that's something that a lot of schools do. A lot of principals have come to us and said our school community suggested this or wants that, but would love to think through formalizing that process. So thank you for that sort of question/suggestion. And that's something that you can be on the lookout for.
Thank you, Sarah. I can't remember if you mentioned this, but there is a school advisory board, a student advisory board that you may lead. Can you talk a little bit about that for students who may have joined us today and how they can stay active?
Yes, so the Chancellor does have a student advisory board. We actually just closed the application for this year yesterday. But if you didn't have a chance to apply and you're still interested in being involved, I would suggest that you reach out to your school counselor, and we can collect names of students that would be interested in the event that some additional spaces become available. But basically, we do have an opportunity for 2 students from each high school to represent themselves and their schools on this advisory board that meets monthly with the Chancellor. And generally what we do is we work together to kind of develop a list of topics that are really interesting to both students as well as central office leaders. Really use these students' wonderful feedback to help shape decision making. And so it's a great opportunity to represent your school and have your voice heard. So if you didn't have a chance to apply this year, but you're interested, please do contact your school counselor, and we'll work to find opportunities to have your voice heard.
Awesome. So one last question before we lead into resources that Liz can provide. What will the SAT or ACT process look like? I'm not sure if you can answer that or if that's someone else on our team, but what will that look like for this coming year or this fall?
That's a me. That's a Bibo.
I'll turn that over to Erin Bibo.
Hi, everybody. It's great to see you all. I'm Erin Bibo, Deputy Chief of College and Career Programs, also a very proud DCPS parent of 3. So hope you all are hanging in there. SAT, great question. DCPS will be offering the SAT in school to a limited number of 12th graders at a single location on Wednesday, October 14th. There was a registration period open for that. It closed on the 15th. We are happy to provide information to families that may have missed that registration about other opportunities to sign up to have your child take the SAT. There is another site that offers testing on weekends, and we are happy to share that information with you, as well as how to apply for a fee waiver for that. Assuming it is safe to do so, we will offer the PSAT in school at no cost to our 9th and 10th graders in the spring, and the SAT at no cost in school to our juniors in the spring. Last but not least, at DCPS, we really recommend the Khan Academy SAT test prep resource. It is free. And if your child has her or his score report from previous SATs or PSATs, they can enter in that score report number into the Khan Academy site, and it will personalize that tutoring to promote areas in which your child needs the most work in order to increase their score. We have research on our end that indicates if students put in 20 hours on that platform, they can increase their score by about 100 points, which is a pretty good return on investment of time. If you have any more questions about SAT, just pop them in the chat and we will make sure to reply.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Erin and Sarah, for answering all the questions we've had for tonight. I'm going to turn it over to Liz. And Liz, or maybe Sarah, if you can answer this piece moving forward as we share additional resources. Are there lists that will be shared out to families about like their pathways coordinators? Where can that be? Where is that accessible? And for everyone previewing this slide or this presentation today, this will be shared out to you all, both in the recording and the presentation. And so if there is a slide that you're looking for, it will be found on our Reopen Strong website, as well as a recording on our DCPS Parent U playlist on YouTube. But I'm going to turn it over to Liz to finish out the presentation for today.
Liz, you're muted.
Sorry. Thanks, Jerry. And just to answer the first part of the question or comment, we did link a lot of those resources at the end of this presentation in the appendix, including contact information for pathways coordinators, for credit recovery coordinators, for New Heights. The contact information for counselors is a little unwieldy to fit into the PowerPoint, but we'll work on getting that up, getting a list to you all to include on the website. And then I just wanted to flash up one quick slide with a bunch of links in it, just for additional information. So most of it, a lot of this you can link to if you go to dcps.dc.gov/graduation, but just a link to the graduation requirements that we reviewed, a link again to the virtual community service opportunities. We really want to emphasize getting our students out to do some virtual community service regardless of where they are in high school. And then a little bit more about graduation at DCPS, including some information about our office, pre-K to graduation policies, just some more information about how we support students on the path to college and career. And then again, a little more links, some links to program overviews for both credit recovery and Twilight. Now, Jerry, you're on mute now.
Third time's a charm, huh? Thank you so much, Liz, Erin, and Sarah for answering questions and also leading this presentation. There may have been some questions that we did not answer, but if you are looking to connect with us or with the Graduation Excellence team or the college and career team, go ahead, send your info in the chat box, and then we'll try to reach out to you. But I will share the appendix with all of the coordinators in just a second. But I do want to flag the Parent University workshops as we're closing out our Reopen Strong strand. Today was our last session, and you can find all of our 10 Parent University sessions for Reopen Strong on YouTube, as well as our DCPS Reopen Strong website. But for the fall session, we do have 4 lined up. One next week, Thursday from 5:30 to 6:30, talking about sexual health with your student. Conversation is a new talk. We do have a parent who will be leading that conversation. And then we have on October 1st, 8th and 15 is our college and career strand. So we have our FAFSA 101. So that's our free application for federal student aid. So if you're looking on how you're going to pay for college, this is the one to go to on October 1st from 5:30 to 6:30. And then knowing how to get into college for October 8th, what are the steps? What do you need to do? What does that look like? And then for October 15 is our supporting students to and through college, thinking about how can we get our students to graduation, but then also how do we go after that and making sure that they are successful through college. And so we will have those 4 Parent University workshops coming up, and you can sign up at bit.ly/DCPS Parent URSVP, and we will have about 6 more Parent University workshops to share out with you starting next week. And so once we confirm that calendar, just go ahead, check out that bit.ly link to see upcoming sessions. And then for wrapping up, please visit dcpsreopenstrong.com, and that's where all of our Parent University sessions will be housed. And then if you also need additional resources about the school year, you can check that website out. And then for today, let us know how we did by visiting bit.ly/ParentUEval19. And this will let us know what additional sessions you're looking forward to or that we can do for our Parent University strand. And then if you have just any general questions or ideas, email us at parentu@k12.dc.gov. I'm going to turn it back to some of the appendix, but check out our YouTube at bit.ly/ParentU Reopen Strong, and that's where you'll find all of our recordings and then our presentations. We should have links to that as well on the DCPS Reopen Strong website. For people who are still on, here are some of our appendices. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly, for academic recovery. So if you're on a computer, try taking a screenshot, or if you're on your phone, taking a screenshot of this. And this presentation will be shared out. So go ahead. I'll share the next couple of slides. So you have that. And that concludes our Parent U Reopen Strong. And if you have any questions, go ahead, go to parentu at k12.dc.gov, and we'll try to answer any of your questions if we didn't answer any of them tonight. Thank you for attending tonight's session, and we hope you have a great evening.